Kia ora whānau, me again. So, we're here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you a section from the air. Again, just kind of going over what we have. So, basically day one, we start here. Day one is in red. Okay, make our way up to the Thunderbolt. That campground there is obviously going to be on the true left-hand side. To mitigate the risk of us being caught off guard by rising river levels. So should the river come up, we're not stuck on the Thunderbolt campsite site, Thunderbolt, just at the foot of the Thunderbolt creek and ridge. No, nothing too serious. If it did, for whatever reason, we'd just come up here over the Thunderbolt, back around here to campsite 2 up at Waipakahi Valley. But we're going to just eliminate that and camp on this side, on the left-hand side, facing upstream. From here, we make our way up the river towards campsite 2, which is going to be our third night on overall the trip, because we spend our first night here at the start. So third night, but camp 2 on the camp itself at the Waipakahi hut. Now that campground there, we may talk about a little bit later, but is a hut. It's a dock managed hut. Enough bunks in there to sleep us all, but should there be others in there, we still have our tents that we're going to be taking with us. What we're going to do is we're going to go over estimated distances and times for each day following this. Once we break out of this particular slide, day 3, we walk up the ridge and stay on the summit of Umukarikari, and then from there it's the same distance, about 3 to 4 hours back down to the Waikoko campground, where we will stay Thursday night, ready to be picked up Friday. Now, day 1 is going to be potentially our biggest day, because we start basically uphill. We start walking uphill for about 2.5 hours, 3 hours till we break out onto the Alpine, into the tussock land, and we walk across that, and then it's down, a very steep track into the river, and then from there we're crossing the river a handful of times before we get to our first campground. Problems, we are looking at obviously any kind of walking related injuries. We are looking at lower limb injuries, strains, sprains, rolled ankles, rolling the knees. A lot of that can happen, especially this section here, walking down the hill. It's going to be steep. The kids are going to be carrying some pretty heavy packs. We're looking at, for everything they need for 5 days, we're looking at roughly 15 to 20 kilo packs, all of our kids, okay? And things that can really kind of work against them are things like poor footwear choice, physical strength and stamina, and then the emotional side of things. So obviously when you're sore, the body's pretty unwilling, and so that's what we can expect for that first part. Sorry, this section here, it's exposed. There's no trees or anything. The trees have stopped growing by that stage because of the environmental conditions. Usually the trees or the shrubbery is quite small, so no trees or large plants, large cellular structured plants like your large trees, because of the intense cold that you can experience up in that space. And so we've lost all of our trees, and we're just kind of that tussock tundra type environment. So a lot of exposure, and again, just we are in spring. We're kind of partway through the first month of koanga at that stage, and so the sun hopefully should be up, but we're still very much in the central plateau. We're quite elevated, and things are a lot cooler upstairs than they are downstairs, so to speak. and so we'll manage that by the type of footwear. The type of clothing that our kids have readily available at the tops of the packs. They can just whip out their jackets, their parka, or their raincoats and windbreakers to just manage the potential risk of hypothermia due to the exposure on the tops there. And there's an element of snow. We're not expecting snow then, but not to write it off. It can still happen, so that's one thing that I'm not overly experienced in taking students through, especially over a long distance, walking through the snow, because of the one thing that I've always come to follow when up in the hills is to always expect the unexpected. It's one thing to say that this will happen because that's what Met Service says, but you can never be 100% sure, and we just got to try our best to mitigate as much as we can with the information we have, and with a keen eye on monitoring the weather as we go as well. And so if we can see that there's a lot of snow up top, basically I'm going to pull the pin. We're not going through it, and because there's a number of things that can happen with snow that we just will not be equipped for, and I'm not willing to put our kids through that, and myself through that for that matter. So heavy snow, not going to. We'll monitor the snow forecast. I'm okay with wind and rain, 100% fine with wind and rain, but the snow element is just something that we are not prepared for, and that we're not willing to risk. So beyond that, dropping down to the river. So now we've got another element on day one, the river crossings, and this particular kōrero will cover the entire river section, health and safety stuff. So we're going to get wet. Yeah, we're going to be walking in the wet regardless. There's going to be no rock hopping to try and keep your shoes dry. As long as you can, it's straight through the middle. Up. Shoes are going to get wet. Your knees are going to get wet. Some places we might even find that the only safest place we got to go is somewhere where our undies end up getting wet. So there is the element of slipping on rocks when we are crossing the river. So we do have a river safety program that we're going to carry out. This particular river safety crossing is going to be 100% compulsory for every single student who comes on this trip. If your mokopuna does not attend this one, they will not be coming on this camp. Or for Paumarumaru, any of our kids who do not attend that particular training program will not be attending this trip. It is probably the number one hazard is the river, and so in order to mitigate that, students need to do this program. We will be looking at things such as self-rescue techniques, so how kids are able to rescue themselves. How do they adjust the strapping on their packs? Do they clip them? Do they unclip them when they're walking? How do they ditch their pack in the event that they slip over and they feel themselves being moved by the current of the river? We also have throw bag training, where we're going to have throw bags, which are a team safety mechanism, where different individuals will have throw bags where they're filled up with water. You hold the rope at one end, you huff the bag out, and as the bag goes out, it pulls out about 30 metres of rope. And we'll do a bit of training on that. It's in about 2 weeks, that one, and that's up the Karangahake Gorge in the Ohinemuru River, where we can put the kids into a river system with a bit of current, where it's rocky bottom, river system that I suppose in a way emulates what the Waipaki River is going to eventually, what they're going to be exposed to going down the river. From there, we are looking at, if we follow the river system up here, we are also going to be doing a outdoor first aid program with the kids leading up. And that's going to be another. It's not 100% essential, but it is going to be one of the. It is going to be one of the programs that we really encourage the majority to do. There are going to be a couple of students who are away on a different program on that particular day, but we'll try and nab the majority, and it's going to be a program run by us, and so we're able to pick up those kids and teach them as we go as well. So they're not going to miss out on too much. So some of the issues with crossing the river are things like slippery rocks. Again, lower limb injuries. There's slipping on the rocks in there that'll cause rolled or twisted ankles. There's the hypothermia element, especially if there's a strong wind funneling down the river system. So if I fall over, and chances are someone's going to fall over at some stage across the 2 days we're in the river system, we get them changed, we get them warmed up. We've got our cookers there, we can get a brew going, get a cuppa going, warm them up slowly from the inside and from the outside, check the morale, have a bit of a break, and then get moving as required. And we'll make these judgments as a team with the students and with the staff as well. If we're going to be getting wet kind of beyond the waistline, we are now starting to look at problems like chafing. We do have ways to minimise that, and it's the type of clothing, how the clothing is worn, and ways of strapping between the thighs and all that sort of stuff that we'll go over with the kids during our first aid program as well. Fatigue is going to be another big factor walking up the river system here, and that one basically just comes down to how the group's morale is managed by our leaders who are going to be taking the camp and the staff members on the trip as well. So fatigue, obviously, when the body's aching, the mind takes a bit of a hammering, and so a lot of the when the lower back from carrying the pack and the shoulders start to ache, if you've rolled your ankle and you're kind of not feeling it, that's when we can start really feeling the pinch in the emotions and the feelings side of things that we need to be mindful of, and that we'll be monitoring greatly on this particular trip here. So that up the river system, and obviously the other major is the event of the river actually rising. Because we are in the river system, we understand that because we're at the head or in the headwaters of this particular stream, it's not like the Waikato River where it's basically steep sides, deep water, unclear, can't see anything, it's muddy. It's quite the opposite. We have, on average, is about calf to probably at the deepest knee depth, but there are definitely a lot of pools that are a lot deeper. But again, we'll be crossing in locations that we assess to be passable, all coming down to river flow, clarity, because this river is quite a clear river. It's beautiful, crystal clear on a good day. The only thing that's going to limit our visibility is the amount of water coming off the hills that can stir up a bit of murk and make it a bit muddy. But again, if it's at that point, we're not going to be crossing a river where we cannot see the bottom. End of the story. We'll just have to follow one of our exit plans that I'm going to show you later on in this video. So nice and clear river, rocky river, and quite a nice little space. So again, the nature of in the headwaters, if it rains overnight while we're asleep, the headwaters do rise pretty rapidly. They come up pretty quickly, the water level, if there's been a really good rain. But in like fashion, when it stops, they go down pretty quickly. But again, there's a lot of tributaries feeding this river system that there's a lot of water in the whenua that the whenua actually soaks up and releases over the next few days that kind of maintain that kind of a good height, but it does come down a lot faster than, say, downstream. But again, we'll be assessing all of those issues as we go up the river. We do have an exit plan, like I said, we'll go over in the next video to show kind of where we can get out should that stuff hit the fan, and we'll move on from there. But carrying on with this one, once we get to the hut, we're now again back in the exposed, in the open here. And this one here, I'll finish on this actually for this video, is day one. We're looking at about 4 hours in, not day one, day three, up toward campsite 3 on the ridge top. It's about a 3-hour walk, but so is the downhill from there down to the finish location. Should it be extremely windy and wet, we are going to, this will probably end up being our longest day. We'll push past Camp 3 on the top, and we'll just push our way either potentially just below the bush line, where there, just inside the bush line there's a nice couple of clear spots that we can camp together, just to keep out of the rain. There's a bit of wood there, or we can carry on, push down another 2 hours, and actually do that 6 to 7 hour walk out to the campground and stay there, which will mean we basically come out a day early, but we'll make that call. When we get there, having a look at the weather systems, and we are going to have someone text us. We are going to have someone text us our weather reports just to keep us up to date with the latest. Now, specialist safety equipment that we have for this section here, or for the whole trip for that matter, is once we drop down into the river system here, we have no communication, cell phone reception. So what the school is acquiring is a Garmin InReach GPS system, and it's a handheld GPS navigation aid where it's got the maps and it can show us digitally where we can go, where all the tracks are, so on and so forth. But it also gives us the added option of two-way text messaging to designated cell phone numbers, which will be with Matuahemi and Whaikath. And so should there be an emergency, or should we need to get an urgent message out, or likewise an urgent message come into us, it can be done via their cell numbers, which we will put on the pānui coming home, and that'll allow us to, that short brief messages, no big long novel style messages. For example, campsite 1 reached, saw bodies, everyone's here, safe, text tomorrow. Those kinds of messages that we can get out. And so we'll have that capacity. That'll be our only capacity of communication once we drop off in day 1 into this river system here. Day 2 as well, that'll be our only means of communication. Day 3, once we get up to here, we now have cell reception, but that kind of peters out the lower we get towards Waikoko Campground on day 4 of the walk. The other safety device that we do have on us is an EPIRB, a personal locator beacon, and that one it's purely a signal. It does not have the capacity to send messages, or the ability to, nor does it have the ability to share our intentions or to receive back information from anywhere else. Its sole purpose is to let search and rescue operators know that, 1, where we are, and 2, we need help. So in the event of an urgent emergency that will be set off, all staff members are capable of utilising that, and when we do our first aid program, there's the mokopuna as well will be taught how to operate that device in the event staff are unable to perform that. And that is linked directly with the LANSAR, New Zealand Land Search and Rescue, which will be operating out of the central area. I think it's Turangi and Taupo are the nearest units, so rescue helicopter type stuff coming to look for you once that beacon is set off. So that's what we have between us, and we have two-way radios to kind of keep communication between our lead scouts and our tail end Charlies. Okay, so, and and the last thing I forgot to mention, so as part of the safety plan as well, was bringing someone along that has a similar, if not more, experience than myself in the outdoors. And so I do have a friend of mine who will be attending, who has been given the green light to come along and support us. Now, his background is he's a surgeon by trade and has recently taken up a role as a GP here in the Waikato and at Te Koho and through Ragland Medical Centre as well. He's an avid outdoors person, very experienced, is familiar with the area we're going into as well. He's, obviously his medical experience is going to be invaluable, and he is also with the reserves as a medic in the army. So he brings that added element of expertise and experience that he can share with the mokopuna and be another kind of safety element. He is able to identify hazards alongside myself and the other staff members attending and be able to help mitigate a lot of the problems that can arise. Kia ora.